I know where the crown jewels of the Iraqi state are, and it is a staggering set of images. The digit bones coming up with rings around the bones. We found one poor sod with an RPG, and he literally was on the second level of the bank. He'd literally taken an RPG and fired it at this German steel classic bank vault. Years ago, as I briefly mentioned, when we started, and hopefully you'll just trim that because I don't think it's an appropriate place to really begin the yarn, but that's up to you. It's your material. I signed the release. You do whatever you want with it.
That's hysterical. Chuck, he still thinks he's directing. Isn't that adorable?
Producing as well, yeah.
But anyway, so I it was back in 1993. I'm in Iraq at the height of the sanctions regime against the Iraqi people there. And I stumble into a videotape which has never been seen at that point anywhere outside of a terribly small circle of people, of the head of the Iraqi Archaeological Service pulling out the burial treasures of 4 Assyrian queens from the city of Nimrud, also in northern Iraq. And it is a staggering set of images. The digit bones coming up with rings around the bones. The wrist bones coming up, these huge gold bangles, still decorating the bones of these now long dead, 2,800 year ago dead women, right? And this is the treasure of Nimrud. And it is, in the history of great treasures, probably second only to King Tut's tomb. The quality of the handiwork on these materials is frankly way better than anything in Tut's tomb. I mean, it's just beautiful goldsmithing, and it's just exquisite. And there's like kilos of exquisite gold artifacts. But this is in the middle of sanctions. It's all crazy. This stuff disappears, just like disappears. And I spend the next 10 years basically trying to lay my hands on it, not literally. All I want to do is make a film about it. And I finally get, in 2003, the permission of Muayyad al-Said, if I remember his name rightly, the then head of the Iraqi Archaeological Services. You know what, Jason? You should really come and make a film about the treasures of Nimrud. But, you might want to do it a little bit after the, present difficulty, which was that the Americans and the Europeans had said we're about to invade Iraq, right? And so I managed, courtesy of National Geographic, to essentially go to Baghdad in the middle of the bloody war, because not only have I seen the videotape, but now because I can't get my mind off of this stuff, right? For the next decade, I mean, where is it? Where is it? Is it still there? Has he melted it down? Where is it? Where is it? And I'm like one of very, very few people in the world who know where the treasure of Nimrud is. And, in the craziness of war, certainty is the greatest currency you can possibly possess, because everybody's going, what's happening? And you go, oh, I actually know what's happening. I know where the crown jewels of the Iraqi state are, and you need to talk to me about getting them back. And I was able, because I knew something nobody else knew, to actually get on the inside of the American efforts to secure the Iraq Museum, which had been looted, and everybody's terrified that great objects of great wealth had been looted, many of which had been, but not as bad as everybody first thought. But the thing is, they didn't know. And I remember going up to the Marine Colonel, an attorney from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Matthew Bogdanis, and I said, Matthew, I want to show you something. And I said, I had this video, and I showed him some artifacts, photographs I had, and I said, "You don't know what these are, do you, Matthew?" And he goes, "Yeah, I think I should know, shouldn't I?" I go, "Yes, you should. You should." And he says, "What's the deal?" I said, "Well, you're a Marine colonel, so I will take your handshake, and I will lead you to the treasures of Nimrud if you agree that I can have the world exclusive rights for National Geographic to, recover these treasures alongside with you." And we did a handshake deal. And guess what? We were able to recover them.
Was there a flood in
Yes.
the vault? Was there, I seem to remember you telling me you're just wading through water and not knowing if the whole thing was going to collapse under your feet, and then just all these jewels suddenly present themselves. What the hell was that?
Not quite. The long story is that, surprise, surprise, the crown jewels of the Iraqi state were actually in the central bank of Iraq. It's just that you can imagine, it wasn't something that people ever talked about, because you talk about it and you die. It's very simple. Iraq back in the old days is very simple. It's just
Oh yeah, cause and effect. Talk about causation and
correlation. Exactly.
Correlation. There you go.
So what had happened was that as soon as the invasion began, they flooded the central bank. They just opened all these spigots up, and cajillion gallons. I mean, we're talking about, hundreds of Olympic-sized swimming pool quantities of water were pumped into the central bank. And because I had made some mates, back there in the 90s, and with my man, Bogdanos, giving me cover, we were able to get a whole bunch of field irrigation pumps and sump pumps and everything in it. And we started pumping out the central bank of Iraq. The greatest single email I think I ever got was from the deputy governor of the Central Bank of Iraq. And he said, "I just want to thank you very much indeed for helping us recover 4 billion euros, 4 billion dollars, and I think it was like 45 billion Iraqi dinars. And as a result, we have been able to pay the entire Iraqi civil service for the months of April, May, June, and July 2003. Because guess what they keep in the bank?" Willie Sutton, why do you rob banks? Because it's where they keep the money.
Still where the money is.
It's where the money is.
So how did you get the water out of the bank in order to get to the booty?
Well, what we did is we just pumped a lot, and then we realized the water wasn't going down. And so we had this, the word fixer, all right, is like the key word of all documentary filmmaking. Is actually not the DP. It's not people like me. It's not people like you, Mike. It's your fixer, pardon my French. It's
Always.
the fixer. The fixer is that individual who knows how to get shit done, right?
Boots on the ground internally.
This guy put together a group of people, put out a little whispering campaign about, I need to have every manhole cover in like a half-mile radius of the bank popped. And I need every spigot in every one of those manhole covers turned to the off position. And eventually, I don't know which one it was. Nobody ever knew which one it was, probably several. We got to the right spigot. The water stopped coming in, and the water inside the bank started to go down. We found one poor sod with an RPG, and he literally was on the second level of the bank. He'd literally taken an RPG and fired it at this German steel classic bank vault, thing, and blew himself to pieces. You can imagine. Of
course.
Body was like lying there, destroyed. Big old dent in the door. Goes down third, goes all the way down to the fourth floor, and that's where they kept it. That's where they kept the crown jewels. And we were able to, film because nobody in Iraq at that time, certainly not me, certainly not Bogdanas, frankly, nobody knew for sure if the treasure was still there, because we did know, and there was clear reporting that Usay and the other Saddam's son, Usay and Qadday Hussein, they, like 3 days before the Americans roll into Baghdad, went to that same bank and took out, some money, as one does, and they took out, I think, $4 million from the central bank. Where those of us who knew that there was more in the central bank than just money were really terrified. We were like, "Oh my God, are they going to take the gold?" Because gold's a good way to move a lot of dough, subtly and quietly. And so until we actually got inside that last bank vault, nobody knew for sure whether or not the treasures of Nimrud were intact. And there was a lovely Iraqi archaeologist, a woman from the south of Iraq, and she's a very traditional, with a full chador on, and she's in that bank vault, and she picks up one of the crowns which had once adorned the head of one of the Assyrian queens. She picks up, she puts it on her head. It's the most incongruous, beautiful moment, and and it was a great moment of redemption and restoration. This was about this treasure coming home, and it felt very good. Felt very good.
Isn't it? I mean,